Hey everyone and welcome to the channel. My name is Ash and I've recently got a PSVR2 for my PS5. I've done some reviews of some games already, but I'm here with a sort of video covering a handful of them that I've been playing this past month. So let's jump in, check it out and see what I thought of each of the games. Okay, first up was Organ Quarter. Now, this is a VR survival horror game. Now, this was originally released on like PC VR back in 2017, developed by Outerbrain Studios. It's now been ported over to the PSVR2 by AMATA KK. This is a VR horror game that takes heavy inspiration from classic games in the genre. So I'm talking about things like Silent Hill and early PS1 Resident Evil games. And if you know me and you've seen any of my other videos or the podcast, you know I love classic Resident Evil games and Silent Hill games where you've got that inventory management, you've got more puzzles than action. And this is literally that in a nutshell. Now, gameplay wise, the game itself isn't overly long. It's described as a long form horror adventure, and that means it takes place over like in a big sort of environment over about 6 to 8 hours to complete. Now, all of the areas are like connected through like corridors and stuff like that, and outdoor levels and everything. Basically, you've been isolated in your apartment, and over time something's happened to the city outside. It becomes basically infected and twisted and everything like that. Very much like the alternate dimension in Silent Hill, you know, like the Hell Zone where it's all like grotesque and stuff like that. Everything's become twisted by this disease, and like people have become monsters and stuff like that. And you're there to survive, basically. Now, graphically, this game isn't pushing the PS5 and the PSVR2 to its limits. It doesn't. It does the job, but it is very much an old school looking game. It looks a lot like the PS1-esque graphics if it had been sort of upscaled slightly and put onto like a modern system. Now, that doesn't really negate from the game. The game's sort of atmosphere is what it's all about. It has that sort of grungy look that you get from classic Silent Hill games. It has the soundtrack and everything that you get from Silent Hill games. It has like the creepy, weird, monstrous sort of enemies that you'd get from a Silent Hill game. And while the trailer looks very, very action orientated, the actual full game is not like that. Now, there is combat where you can fight enemies and survive and stuff like that using a variety of weapons, but you basically have to solve a lot of puzzles to progress. So you have to like use your map and navigate around the building and stuff like that and figure out what you've got to do. Very much trying to complete puzzles, very much like the sort of Resident Evil 1 mansion puzzles and stuff like that. And I really enjoyed this. Now, it's not perfect, it's a little bit buggy, but it makes up for the sort of unpolished sort of release state just by the overall sort of atmosphere it provides. And it gives you a lot of nostalgia to say it's not an actual nostalgic game. Now, this game obviously includes improvements that you only get on the PSVR2, such as haptic feedback and also sense controller and vibrations in your headsets as well. So it feels and looks like you're actually there. There are scares at times, you are sort of like on edge through the game, but it's not like hardcore action from start to finish. There's a lot more sort of evading and trying to complete puzzles and stuff like that over just sort of like mashing through enemies as you play. Now, this game is out now. It's £16.99, and it was released on the 8th of the 5th, 2023. So I definitely recommend checking this one out if you're into those sort of classic horror games. It won't be everyone's cup of tea, I understand that, but because I am such a big fan of like classic Silent Hill games and stuff like that, I fell in love with it. And even though it has its flaws, I can look past them and just enjoy it for what it is, a nice sort of nostalgic ride, but this time in first person. Okay, the next game that I played this month was The Tale of Onogoro. Now, this was published by AMATA KK again, and it's available on PS4 and PS5, so you can get a PSVR version or a PSVR2 version. Now, there's a free upgrade to the PSVR2 version if you own it digitally, and I also believe you can use it with the disc-based version as well. You can get an upgrade, but I don't believe it's free if you only own the disc version. But this is a cool little game, a sort of puzzle game meets anime meets Shadow of the Colossus style boss battles, in which you are basically this deity sort of character who's been summoned to Onogoro Island, which is this floating island in this parallel world. You're summoned by this like girl called Haru, who has basically had the living snuff kicked out of her by the game's big bad boss. She's got limbs missing and stuff like that. They've had to be replaced by like robot parts and stuff, and she needs your help. So basically, she's a shrine maiden who defeats these things called kami, and kami are like these giant sort of beasts. So you'll go off on an adventure with her battling these beasts. Now, the game is split obviously into like a puzzle-based style game, which sees you like whipping out your like soul pistols or something like that. That you've got these like pistols that allow you to move things around and stuff like that. Very much like Portal. You're gonna be using like teamwork in these puzzles. They're not super difficult, but it's all about working with Haru to ensure the puzzles are completed correctly. Like you do something while she's doing something, etc., etc. And there's also like I say, it then moves on to like the boss battles where you're taking on these sort of giant enemies, very similar to Shadow of the Colossus, and that's where the game really shines. They're the best bit of the game. They're the ones that look the most exciting. There isn't a lot of them in the game, but they are really fun. Now, I liked the graphics in this game. It looked really nice. I love the sort of anime aesthetics to it. One of the nicest looking PSVR2 games I've played so far. I mean, it's not the most detailed, but it was smooth and it looked nice, and I like the style. There's also a lot of plot development in this game, lots of talking, lots of like narrative sections, lots of like cutscenes and stuff like that. So if you're wanting more gameplay over story, then this one may ruffle your feathers in the wrong way. There seems to be probably, it feels like a Metal Gear Solid game where there's a lot more cutscenes and dialogue sections than an exposition and stuff like that, explaining what's going on, expanding on the world and the plot and stuff, than there is actual gameplay. Now, it's not the longest game either, but it is an enjoyable little release. Now, it's available on PS4 and PS5. Like I say, it's $29.99 normally, or for $32.99 you can get the soundtrack edition, which obviously comes with the soundtrack. Now, I like this game. I like the sort of Shadow of Colossus style giant battles where you have to sort of figure out how to defeat each of the sort of beasts. I think that was great. Is it perfect? No. The sort of voice acting is a bit hit and miss, like most anime-esque games. It's a bit I'm trying to think of the word for it. Sometimes it's a bit disjointed and stilted, the voice acting, but overall it's a good little game. It's fun. The puzzles are not sort of stressful enough to annoy you. They just sort of move along the story and split up these like multiple boss fights. Overall, I had a really good time. Okay, and then the last game I've played is Last Labyrinth. Now, this was originally released in 2019. It's since been updated to have PSVR2 compatibility. Same as with the last game, you can upgrade it for free if you own the digital version, or you can have like another upgrade if you own the disc version. Now, this is developed by AMATA KK as well, and this is basically a escape room game. So, if you've ever been in those escape rooms that you can pay and go with your friends in, and basically you're locked in a room, you've got to basically figure out a load of puzzles to open doors and stuff like that to progress and escape. This is that, but in a sort of continuous sort of manner, in a sort of horroristic mansion filled with obviously dangers and stuff like that. Now, you basically wake up in this mansion, you're strapped to a wheelchair, weirdly, and the only thing you can do is sort of point this sort of laser around. Now, in the room with you is this girl, and she doesn't speak your language, but she understands your sort of directions and stuff like that. So you are basically using her to complete the puzzles by sort of directing her to sort of move this, touch that, press this, press that, and stuff like that. And you've got to basically work your way through a variety of challenging puzzles that often end in death, and basically figure out why you're in this place and how to get out. Now, I am not the best at escape room style games. My brain just doesn't understand the way the whole thing works, and I don't piece together certain things, and I get frustrated. But with a bit of determination, you can get through this. It's about 10 hours long, so there's multiple endings to work through as well, and they get quite interesting later on. And if you fail, you just have to sort of retry them and stuff like that. Sometimes death leads to figuring out an answer. So while it's frustrating, it's also, like I say, sometimes necessary. Now, this won't be for everyone. It's a mix of like Saw meets like a narrative sort of walking game mixed with puzzles. So just imagine every room you're in is this horrible murder trap dungeon, basically. Now, the game itself is made by a lot of talented people. So, like, it was spearheaded by Hiromichi Takahashi, and it also features like people that have worked on all sorts of like great games like The Last Guardian, Ico, Shadow of the Colossus, stuff like that. The girl is voiced by Stephanie Jewston, who is Quiet in Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain, and the music is by Hiroki Kikuta, if I pronounce that right, who did Secret of Mana and like Soul Calibur 5. There is a lot of talent in this game. Like, they've put together something that does its thing how it wants to do it, whether you like it or not. But you can see there's been a lot of care and effort put into it. Now, it's not my favourite PSVR2 game by far. I like I say, these sort of escape room style puzzle games aren't for me. I've been enjoying the more active and the more sort of on railsy sort of VR sort of games recently. Just my own personal opinion and stuff like that. But overall, the game isn't bad. The other character is an interesting thing where you have to sort of interact with her and sort of keep her alive, because like it kind of reminds me of that TV show. I can't remember what it was called. It was back in the UK, and it was like they were in a video game, and they weren't at all. It was just like really bad, like 80s green screen, and they were guiding people through levels, and they'd always fall and die and stuff like that. And that's what it reminds me of. You don't want to let her die, but you always keep putting her in danger and stuff like that. Now, some of these puzzles as well are very sort of mundane, but some of them are really, really interesting. And when you actually finally get that satisfaction of completing them, you feel amazing. Like when you finally work out what you've got to do in a room and you're able to move on, it's really good. As well, the story is pretty good as well. I did like the story with the different endings as well, is a nice little touch. So overall, they've done a good job. Is it perfect? No. Will it take a bit of time to get used to it and sort of figure out what you're doing? Yes. But all in all, a fun little game that I highly recommend for puzzle-loving fans. Now, this game is priced at $29.99. And you can also buy it in a pack with the game I've just talked about, The Tale of Onogoro, for $44.99. So if you're interested in both of them, you can maybe save yourself a little bit of money and buy them both together as well. But that's it, guys. Like I say, they're the sort of 3 PSVR2 games I've been focusing on for the last couple of weeks. I'm going to be doing some more reviews soon of other PSVR2 games, so keep your eyes peeled for them as well. There's loads of them coming. I'm going to work my way through them bit by bit and do either solo videos or sort of review roundups, doing a few of them at once. And you can also check out our reviews for, we've done God of, like Drum God or something like that, or Drum Rock, and the what's it called now? The zombie game that was a film that its name literally slips my mind at this time, but I did reviews on that as well. I've also got the Horizon VR game, and I'll be doing some coverage of that as well when I finished it. So keep your eyes peeled on the channel, hit that like button, hit subscribe, and we'll see you soon for more content, guys. Bye for now.